We are slaying monsters.
Don't let the ghosts and the ghouls disturb you, darling.
Last time we were using Mary Celeste and Marie Celeste interchangeably. And I wanted to talk about this because between the episodes I did some digging on this. So the actual ship was the Mary Celeste, but in the Arthur Conan Doyle story, he called it the Marie Celeste because he was taking like some creative liberties with all of it. But in the intervening century and change, that got even more twisted up and intertwined, where both of those are sort of used interchangeably to talk about that ship because the truth and the Doyle story are now so inexorably linked. So,
okay.
I thought that was fascinating.
That is interesting. So we can call it whatever we want, I guess, huh?
Well,
Between
we probably should call it the Mary Celeste when we're
That's
talking about
correct.
the ship, and the Marie Celeste when we're talking about the ship
Story.
from the story.
Okay.
But-
yeah.
All right,
Keep
that
it
clears
clear.
it up. Yep.
Okay. Well, listen, we're here for the facts.
Yeah, we are.
Yes.
We are here for the facts because we're slaying monsters. We got Maddie J.
Hey.
We got Katie.
Hi.
And I'm EJ. And we're just going to talk lighthouses. We're going to wrap it up, aren't we?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the missing lighthouse keepers of the Flannan Island lighthouse, and we're going to try to figure out what happened. Nobody really knows. There's some theories, but even to this day, nobody really knows what happened.
I mean, you really left us on a cliffhanger with those diary entries. Like,
Those are so great.
Yeah, because in our last episode, we talked about the disappearances of the three keepers, James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Douglas MacArthur, during a December storm in 1900. The relief that came to check on them found no sign of the men, but only cryptic logbook entries, including the final entry that seemed to imply that Principal Lighthouse Keeper Ducat was losing his mind and concluded, I'm sure you all remember, with the quote, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all." So spooky, so creepy. So speculation about the fate of the keepers, it ran the gamut of everything from homicidal murder, maybe even spiritual attacks, supernatural creatures. A lot of this stemmed from the very spooky conditions that they found the abandoned lighthouse in. Keith McCloskey in The Lighthouse writes about that. He says,
The empty rooms, the fire gone out, all the clocks stopped, the light itself not working, which provided an eerie aspect to the tale, as if the men had been there 1 minute and vanished into thin air the next.
Now, it's worth noting that the reports of uneaten meals and the overturned chair come from a 1912 poem, which was actually written, therefore, 12 years after the disappearance. And in that poem, Gibson writes this.
Like curs, a glance has brought to heel. We listened, flinching there, and looked on the untouched meal and the overtoppled chair.
William Gibson wrote that poem and goes on and on. However, Joseph Moore, the relief keeper and the first person on that scene, he never noted uneaten meals or overturned chairs in his report. There's really no reason to believe that these details were anything other than artistic license by Gibson the poet, probably to punch up his work and maybe rhyme bread with spread. Gibson himself used the poem to propose that the keepers had lost their sanity during the storm, and wrote this toward the end.
And 3 had gone stark mad, and one whom we'd all known as friend had leapt from the lantern on still night and fallen dead by the lighthouse wall.
Kind of implying that someone was driven mad and therefore jumped to his death.
Now, the message, though, toward the end, the thing that I read toward the end of the last episode, that does kind of lean toward somebody going mad.
It does. Yeah.
Are you about to tell me that's not true?
Yeah. I mean, if I had to just like guess based on the messages that they found in the logbook, the main guy, the most experienced guy, went mad for some reason, like broke. The super backup guy, this was his first time ever at the lighthouse. He just sounded like he was freaking out because he was scared, because he obviously would be scared. This is like an intense thing even for experienced lighthouse keepers. He's not. And the guy who should be who's like the most experienced is losing his mind. And then the guy keeping the log was like trying to hold it all together. Like, that's how I read the situation. But also, like, if the guy jumped out the window, like, wouldn't they have found his body or jumped off the tower? Wouldn't they have found his body potentially? I don't know. Like, anyway.
You would think so. That if you look at the pictures of the lighthouse, it is not on a high cliff overlooking the water. It's up high on land, and it's surrounded by land. It's actually surrounded by a concrete wall. So it's not like he could have leapt off of the lighthouse tower into the sea. He would have landed on the land if that happened.
Can you remind me how far the lighthouse is from mainland?
That's a good question. 20 miles, I think.
Oh, so it's far. That's
yeah,
okay.
it's far.
Like, over a mile is far.
Yes,
okay.
yes, quite a ways. Yes.
Okay, so they're very isolated. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Because it so bodies could have been easily lost. Like if they had ended up in the water somehow, like they'd be lost.
Yes.
Yeah. That's true.
Okay.
Like if they had somehow purposefully or otherwise gone off, like they would have just been washed away into the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never find them.
It is 20 miles. It's 20 miles, 32 kilometers west of the island of Lewis. Because if you sort of remember, it's Flannan Island Lighthouse. Then to the east is the larger island of Lewis and Harris. And then to the east of that is the Scottish mainland.
Ah, okay. Wow. It's very out there.
Yeah.
Very isolated. Okay.
So the Northern Lighthouse Board appointed Superintendent Robert Muirhead to investigate the disappearances at the Flannan Island Lighthouse. He arrived on December 29th and spent several days both training replacement keepers and searching the island for clues that could explain what had happened. Remember, that final logbook entry was allegedly written by the assistant lighthouse keeper, Marshall, and it said that the principal lighthouse keeper, Ducat, had gone mad. But when Muirhead looked at the logbook, he didn't find any of that. In fact, the final logbook entry that he recorded was dated December 15th, and it was very routine. It was written by the principal keeper, Ducat, and discussed cleaning the light and doing the dishes. There was no cryptic prayer, no men sobbing during a brutal storm.
Wait, sorry. Are you telling me there's two different logbooks? Or like the guys that first found it misreported what was in the logbook?
The story from the logbook comes from author Vincent Hayes Gaddis. And he wrote about the disappearance, and he allegedly wrote things directly taken from the logbook. But Robert Muirhead's report doesn't cite any of the things that Gaddis said he saw. So there's a discrepancy here in the story that Gaddis wrote later as opposed to the actual person who was on site shortly after. Now, it seems likely that Gaddis probably punched up what was going on to make his story more intriguing.
So Gaddis was not one of the people that arrived on the island, like when they went out there to be like, why is the lighthouse not working, and got there.
No.
Gaddis wasn't there.
Gaddis wasn't there. Gaddis wrote about it after the fact.
And who is Gaddis again? Sorry.
He's a writer.
He's a writer.
He's a
You can't trust writers. You cannot trust writers.
He didn't even work for the Lighthouse Board.
Oh. Why do I have any reason to believe him?
What was he, some fiction writer or something?
Yeah.
Ugh.
God damn
As
it,
a
Gaddis.
fiction writer myself, you can't trust them. Yeah, okay. So now
You really
we know
had
who
me
he
going.
is. Yeah, I know. I totally believed this.
But that doesn't mean that the mystery was completely solved. Because what initially struck Muirhead as strange was there were missing articles of clothing. Both Ducat and Marshall's sea boots, their like exterior waterproof boots, were missing. Marshall had an oilskin, that's an oil-treated coat to protect him from the rain. That was also missing. Ducat had a waterproof coat, not quite an oilskin, but just sort of like a rain slicker. Less useful than an oilskin, but still good in inclement weather, but that was also missing. So that led Muirhead to believe that the men had some kind of intention outside because they were dressed for harsh weather. Now, MacArthur, the newer keeper, the one who was more prone to violent tendencies, his oilskin and boots were still inside by the door. So what this means is whatever Ducat and Marshall were doing outside, they were doing it in their protective clothing, and MacArthur wasn't part of it, or at least wasn't equipped the way they were. And it certainly seems strange that the two men would run out into the storm and MacArthur would join them in, I guess, stocking feet? He wasn't wearing his boots.
So those were his only pair of boots.
I don't know if they were his only pair of boots, but they were the boots that he had by the door. Like, you're going to go outside, you put on these boots.
Okay, that's kind of a weird mystery to me.
It makes me wonder, like, the two guys were outside doing something, and the third guy heard them, like, yell for help, and he just, like, ran out to help them. But, like, you'd think even in that situation, you would, like, stop and, like, throw your boots on, because I'm imagining them as pull-on boots. Maybe that's not true, so maybe you wouldn't if it was going to take you a long time to, like, lace them up or something. But that's the only thing I can imagine that would make sense, because, like, I agree with EJ, like, that's kind of weird.
Even if they were lace-up boots, I think I would still pull on my boots unlaced.
Right, then just run.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, also, like, with grip and everything, like, you'd want to have your boots on. I mean, so let me think about this. Like, Matt, can you review the timeline? Because you said the last journal entry from Ducat that the investigator found was from the 15th. The storm was ongoing at that point. Or no, that was prior to the storm, because the boat noted the lighthouse being out on December 17th. And the last journal entry they have is from the 15th, and it seemed normal.
Okay. The ship that passed by was the SS Arctur, and that actually did pass on the night of the 15th. Not the 17th. They passed on the night of the 15th. So we have the logbook from sometime in the afternoon, after doing the dishes from breakfast and lunch. I don't know how much you would log. Just maybe not severe storms. Severe storms you would definitely log. I'm not sure if it was just raining, if he would have logged that. He might have, but he definitely did not log, oh my God, this is the worst storm I've ever seen. This is a huge, huge waves, crazy wind, whatever. It was just a very routine. We did the dishes, we lit the light, we did our regular routine. Didn't seem like there was anything out of the ordinary. And then by the time the Arctur passed that night through a storm, the men were gone.
The light was out. But they said that they lit the light. So the log entry must have been like, it's December, so it could be pretty early in the afternoon, really, like 3 or 3:30 even.
I believe that lighting was actually the lighting on the 14th, not on the 15th.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they had lit the light on the 14th, done the dishes on the morning of the 15th, and on the morning of the 16th, he would have said we lit the light on the 15th. Make sense?
Got it.
Yeah.
It does. Mm-hmm. So we don't know if the light was ever lit on the night of the 15th.
Yeah, we have no way of knowing.
Like initially, yeah.
We have no way of knowing, right.
Okay. I feel reoriented now. All right.
Okay. Heading out. Oh, actually, there's one other thing I wanted to address, because I did some more research into the guy who was on the shore who was supposed to look out at the light.
Yeah, what about this guy?
Okay,
Come on.
because we talked about this
motherfucker.
guy. This guy who dropped the ball, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, and this was actually a huge point of contention for the Northern Lighthouse Board in the wake of this disappearance, because their policy was sometimes on foggy nights, you may not be able to see the light, so don't look or don't worry if you can't see it. It's the fucking northwestern coast of Scotland. It's always fucking foggy there. And so, he saw the light sometimes, but a lot of times he was just looking out and being like, oh, there's fog. Remember, we talked about it's the har that they call in Scotland, the hoarfrost, right? He looked out, he saw fog, he was like, oh, still foggy. Still foggy.
Well, yeah, and also it was storming.
And it was storming. And so the Lighthouse Board was like, oh yeah, you're never going to see the light through that storm. Don't worry about it.
So there really wasn't a big controversy. It was just like conditions.
And in the wake of this, there was a whole bunch of talk and debates and meetings where they had to renegotiate that position and be more demanding about, like, no, you have to actually report if the light is out.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, this seems like a terrible policy. Like, if you're going through what if you have one of those weeks where it's like a week of rain and fog and stuff, so you don't see the fucking light for like a week, and you're all just like, I guess it's still there. That's not a policy. That's not.
You got to go check in on that lighthouse.
Yeah. It's not effective anyway.
It's crazy how cavalier shit used to be. You're just it's probably fine.
Very, very.
Yeah. So Superintendent Robert Muirhead headed out to the pier, and he performed a very extensive inspection of the pier and the crane there. And immediately he saw the crane's railing had been dislodged, and there was a life preserver that was on that railing, and that was gone. It was just completely missing. There was also a box that held ropes that they would use to moor ships to the pier. He found it in pieces on the rocks below. It had been completely smashed. The ropes were scattered all over the place. Muirhead's conclusion, therefore, was that during the storm, the men had rushed out, tried to secure the mooring box, maybe the life preserver on the crane, and had been hit by a massive wave and washed away. He wrote up this report to the NLB in January 8th of 1901, and he concluded with a very somber reflection.
I visited the Flannan Isles when the relief was made as lately as the 7th of December, and have the melancholy recollection that I was the last person to shake hands with them and bid them adieu.
Very likely that he was the last person to see them alive. Although the board accepted his conclusion, thought it seemed very rational, it didn't account for a couple of things. Number one, you may remember that the initial crane there had been built and washed away, and so they built a second crane that is now 70 feet above the ocean. So that would be a massive wave if it came through. And it didn't account for some of the more esoteric theories that started to spring up after the mysterious disappearance of the keepers. Just a few days after the discovery, and before Muirhead made his report, an article was published in the Scotsman newspaper with the headline, "Disaster at Lewis Lighthouse. 3 men drowned." Readers were very quick to link the haunting image of these empty rooms to the maritime mystery of the Mary Celeste. Given how these kinds of myths evolve and change, it's not hard to see how the fate of the Mary Celeste influenced the stories about these missing keepers on the Flannan Island. Just like that ghost ship, claims started to arise of the uneaten meals, their belongings still being in place, and the fully operational facility. We know all of these are untrue, but they all kind of build this mythology that something supernatural had gone on. Now, locals to Eilean Mor started to tell their own stories too. One of these claimed that when the boarding party came ashore, the relief ship that was just checking on them, they saw 3 black birds flying from the lighthouse. Those birds were either the men's souls symbolically taking flight, or they were some kind of metamorphosis where the keepers actually transformed into birds. Joseph Moore, the relief lighthouse keeper, didn't actually describe any birds in his report, which means that they were, of course, added later. And it's kind of unclear if there's any real mythological basis for this story. I mean, obviously, the albatross is a sign of bad luck in the maritime world. And I know Scandinavian folklore believes that cormorants are spirits of the dead coming to visit the living. I don't know if there's anything similar in Scottish folklore. I wasn't able to find that.
Not at all to give any credence to this story that people created, but I kind of find it hard to believe that some guy that's coming on shore and they're all probably on edge because they're like, okay, something weird is happening here, that the lighthouse keepers like didn't raise the flag, like aren't coming to greet us, that he would note birds flying around.
Yeah, sure.
He'd be like, maybe you might have seen them and been like, birds, but like, why would you think that was weird?
Yeah, I would also assume that there's a lot of birds flying around, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah. Another popular myth stems from the Callanish stones, the henge we talked about last time. Rumor claimed that site was used for ritual sacrifice by the ancient Druids, and the men might have fallen victim to malevolent spirits looking for their latest sacrifice. The roots of that story go back even further, to a seaman named John Morrison, who had been marooned on the Flannan Isles in the early 1800s. Now, allegedly, John Morrison tried to build a fire, but the weather conditions were so cold and damp that he couldn't get it going. And seeing his plight, a mysterious man approached him and told Morrison, "Oh, there's a fire that burns in this nearby church. That fire never goes out. You can go there and warm up." And so Morrison followed the man's instructions and was able to find the fire and keep his fire going until he was ultimately rescued. I'm sure you're thinking, why the hell didn't the man just help poor Morrison instead of saying, "Hey, there's some fire over there, see ya"? That depends on which version of the story you're reading. Some retellings say that man just vanished in front of Morrison, like he was a ghost, a helpful spirit. But others claim that he was real flesh and blood, just not human. According to Electric Scotland, a website chronicling Scottish history and folklore, the islands of Lewis and Harris were home to a tiny race of humanoids. These pygmies, as they were sometimes called, no relation to the pygmy people of the Congo Basin, they were instead a race of imps who survived in small communities through hunting, gathering, and fishing. The folklore was so popular that there's even a pygmy island off the northern coast of Lewis. The first account of the pygmies on Lewis comes from Dean Monroe in 1549, who claimed to have found small human bones and miniature buildings there. That was later corroborated by Dr. William Cook Mackenzie, who cataloged the site and dug up pottery shards and bones. Mackenzie also searched the stone church where Morrison had allegedly found the fire, and he believed that it was a site of worship for these pygmies.
So this church exists. Like I've seen pictures of it. Is that real?
Yes.
Like, okay.
Yes, it exists. It's a real building.
Is it really that small? It's hard to tell with the picture.
It is small. Yeah.
Okay. It could have just been a fun little building people made, like a fun. I feel like people that are into mythology and stuff like that and folklore would create fun little things to kind of boost the folklore, kind of like the I never say this right. The Cottingley
fairies.
The Cottingley fairies. Like that was a creation because folklore's fun.
Right.
So I wonder if this is a similar thing.
how small are we talking here? Like people did used to be a little bit shorter, and I don't know, maybe they just build a small church.
Yeah. For people that are my size.
Well, this building here, it's called St. Flannan's Chapel, obviously. And it was built by the monks who originally inhabited the island. But by the time Monroe and Mackenzie made their inspections, the building had fallen into disrepair. The roof was missing, the walls were crumbling, And so it seems pretty likely that Mackenzie misinterpreted the damaged walls as being the actual height because he was expecting to find a race of pygmies there, and then he found damaged walls that were too small for like regular people to have a church. And so he decided that his race of hobbits went there for their Sunday masses.
Wow. So that makes a lot of sense. Did he actually really find bones?
He did. Yeah. They were examined by the Natural History Museum at South Kensington, and they concluded that the bones were the remains of seabirds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay.
So they were small bones,
Yeah.
but they were bird bones.
I guess the beaks didn't tip them off, huh?
Maybe they didn't find
Maybe
skulls.
the
I don't
beaks
know.
deteriorated and only the skulls lasted.
This pygmy race, though, has its roots in Scottish folklore, like that of the Kelpie. We've talked about the Kelpie before. The water sprites, shape-shifting monsters that can be humans or animals. These Kelpies of the Outer Hebrides, they're often called storm Kelpies, or the blue men of the Minch, M-I-N-C-H. The Minch, this is a good one. Does anybody want to guess what the Minch is?
Like, are there etymological hints here? Or?
I have no idea. You may need to speak Scottish Gaelic
Oh,
to know the
okay,
etymological hints.
To know what the Minch is.
Minch.
I have no idea.
Sounds like man. In the German isn't Mensch.
No.
Man, okay. I have no.
Yeah, yes, in German.
Übermensch,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. But no, the Minch is the strip of water that separates Lewis and Harris from the mainland. It's the strait there. It's called the Minch.
So these are the Kelpies of the Minch.
Exactly.
Of the strait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But unlike the traditional Kelpies that appear as humans, but then also these like water horses, the storm Kelpies are mostly human, but they have blue skin and long white beards. If you were a sea captain, unfortunate enough to encounter these storm Kelpies, the chief of them might challenge you to a poetry contest. If you win, you get safe passage, but if you lose, the storms will destroy your ship.
This is so weird.
I feel like this is like an 8 Mile style, like, rap battle.
An old school rap battle.
Yeah. I would like to see Eminem face off with this guy.
Eminem would destroy them. Eminem's got safe passage for sure. Yeah.
And he would have passage. Actually, they would make him the chief of the Kelpies.
Maybe he is.
He might be. His secret identity.
His secret identity is the storm Kelpie of the Mensch.
Yes.
Now, these storm Kelpies were treated with reverence, and local gifts were often left for them on the rocky islands. Legend has it that early Scots would even ferry their dead to the Eilean Moor, where they were offered as sacrifices to the Kelpies. One man allegedly refused to keep up this practice, and the Kelpies attacked him and hanged him. That ultimately resulted in hostilities between the Christians and the Kelpies were finally run off the island and driven into hiding in underwater sea caves. Obviously, this is all folklore. But I think you can see how it forms a backdrop for the mystical tales of these missing keepers. In a way, this is a little bit like sacrifices for these pygmies storm Kelpies. These men are left all alone on this deserted rock in the middle of a storm. Maybe they lost their rap battle with the storm Kelpies. Later theorists even postulated that the race of smaller people were, of course, aliens, and that the missing keepers were victims of alien abduction.
If you had to make me choose between storm Kelpies and alien abduction in this instance, I would be like, it's the storm Kelpies, obviously.
Fuck
Yes.
Yeah, storm Kelpies are way cooler.
Way cooler, but also like they just make more sense in this story. Like, why are the aliens coming down during a huge storm and abducting lighthouse keepers? No.
Yeah.
Just leave them out of this.
Because
they're not involved.
Aliens get retconned into all of this shit, man.
Yeah, instead of looking Occam's razor, what's the simplest answer? Sea Kelpies.
Yeah, exactly.
It's appropriate
That's what I'm
culturally.
saying.
Yes. Yes.
as we said, there were never any pygmies there, just monks with poor architectural knowledge. But along with the speculation that they may have been victim of pygmy attacks, some people started speculating that the bad weather may have actually driven a sea monster from the depths that might have attacked the keepers, which is why they were never found. They were eaten by a sea monster. That theory is sort of supported by a very real sea monster that was found on the beaches of a nearby island. We talked about this way back in our very first series, but in 1808, the remains of an alleged sea serpent washed ashore on Stranzi Island in the Orkneys. A particularly bad storm washed it up, and the locals were able to get a really good look at it before it was taken back out to sea. It was named, or at least described, as a sea snake with a mane like a horse. It measured 55 feet long, 4 feet wide, and had a circumference of 10 feet. It had an elongated neck with a tiny little head, and they were able to observe 3 appendages that looked like wings or fins, if you're talking about a sea creature. It also had bristles running down its back like a horse's mane. Scottish naturalist Patrick Neal examined local reports and some of the vertebrae that were salvaged from the creature, also the skull, and he decided it was a new species of sea serpent, or I guess a species of sea serpent, because it's not like we have a whole bunch of them and he found a new one. He even named it after Eric Pontoppidan, a Danish antiquarian who cataloged sea serpents in the 18th century. A more measured analysis was performed by Everland Home, a British surgeon. After his examination of the skull, he determined that the creature was likely a decaying basking shark, which had been eaten by seabirds.
Ugh.
I'm stuck on this man, this antiquarian, who cataloged sea serpents in the 1700s when sea serpents didn't exist. What the fuck was he cataloging?
So that's we
Aren't
could.
there some snakes that are in the ocean?
Yeah, was it an eel?
There are
Was it
some-
eels? You know?
Oh,
Yeah.
No, he cataloged actual sea serpents. Yeah, he did.
There are snakes that can swim. It's one of the freakiest things in the world.
It is freaky. I've seen it. It's very freaky.
Yeah. But
Like, no, thank you.
Unnatural.
Anyway.
But no, Pontoppidan was actually cataloging sea monsters. He did an entire extensive collection of the history of Norway. And inside that, he made a whole... Also, it was at the time, so that was published in like the mid 18th century. So that's the time where we were like really into classifications, and we were trying to like log everything in very particular classifications and all of that stuff. And so he was like deep into this. Oh, well, we have to find and classify all the particular sea serpents in their exact right boxes and whatever.
So he was like studying mostly probably like the folklore of Norway and cataloging that
Yes.
and trying to find evidence of the folklore of Norway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was that's the antiquarian thing. He was like, I think he was the first Danish writer to actually collate all of the stories. So he was sort of taking them from oral histories and scraps that had been written and actually creating an entire digest of Norwegian folklore and history in its entire
cool.
scale. Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay, got it. Understand
Yeah.
now. Thank you.
That's the origin of a lot of the stories that we have. Not just sea monster stories, but a lot of the history of Norway comes from him.
Nice.
So shark carcasses in particular, can present in some really strange ways. They don't have bones. Instead, their skeletal system is made up of cartilage. And so cartilage decays at different rates than bones. If you have the classic like tuna skeleton that you see from the cats in cartoons, where you have the head and all the bones and stuff. That's not what sharks look like. The jawbone of the Stranzi beast was missing. So you had this head without a jaw connected to a very long sort of serpentine neck, very sinewy looking. And that gave it this entire serpentine appearance, contributed to this theory of it being a sea monster. For a more modern example of that, and just how weird dead sharks can be, we can look to the Zuiyo Maru carcass, which was an alleged sea monster caught by a Japanese fishing trawler in 1977. When the crew hauled that aboard, they thought they had caught a dead plesiosaur, because it had a long neck, 4 fins, and a spiny backbone and a long tail. But it didn't take long for biologists to determine that the creature's identity was a basking shark, decaying. Examining photographs of the creature, scientists at the Natural History Museum in London were able to identify the remains of a dorsal fin, and they compared the skeletal dimensions to existing sharks and also extinct marine dinosaurs. Their measurements did not match any plesiosaurs, but they did perfectly match basking sharks.
I'm looking at a basking shark right now. They're crazy looking even when they're not decaying. So
Yeah.
the hell? Oh, sorry. I also just saw a shark, one of like that washed up on a shore, and it doesn't even look like it's that decayed yet, but it looks weird. Like it looks like an enormous blob. It doesn't look like, it looks like a long blob, not like a shark the way it does in the water. It's really weird how much the shape transforms.
In cryptozoology, we call this globsters. Those are globsters, things that wash up on the on the beach and you don't really know what they are. Yeah.
Oh, weird. Okay. Okay. Sorry. I just needed an image in my head of what you were talking about. And like, it's really true how, oh, whoa, sorry. There's another one from the BBC and it really does look like, I don't know, like an eel or a snake or something. Like it's crazy. It's like it deflates and becomes almost like, yeah.
Yeah, it loses all of the mass that you sort of associate with a shark and becomes this skinny little body. As soon as that lower jaw falls off, because we all know the shark mouth, you know? But as soon as you lose that lower jaw, it looks like it's a snake head.
I can see that.
I am like a little bit taken aback at like how much it changes shape.
Yeah.
Because like when you were first talking about it, I'm like, okay, people. Like people, I don't know. I was going to go to the place where it's like people see what they want to see, or I could see if something starts to get like quite decayed, you know, it's like remnants. So it starts to look different. But like, no, these pictures I was just looking at, like the shark is clearly still pretty much intact. It's just like, what happens to it once it dies and is out of the water. Like it really just like collapses in on itself in a really strange way.
And then, you know, you have birds pecking at it. You have crabs eating some of it. And all of a sudden things are missing. And yeah, it gets weird, looks strange. The final theory about the fate of the keepers, at least from the esoteric side, is a very creepy one. Allegedly, during the storm, before the Ark tour passed the lighthouse, another ship was passing the Flannan Isles, keeping a very wide berth of the rocks. And when a sailor looked over the side of the boat, he saw a small rowboat with 3 men aboard. Obviously, that was really strange since the seas were very choppy from the storm. It seemed dangerous for those men in the rowboat. So the sailor hailed them and hollered, "Do you need help?" But they never responded. They just continued rowing through the waves. And the sailor returned to his duties, and when he checked on the rowboat again, it was gone.
Oh, weird. Is it possible that they just couldn't hear him over the storm or see?
The implication is that they didn't acknowledge him at all.
Okay.
They didn't even, I mean, they still would have been able to see the larger ship.
I would imagine.
And they didn't acknowledge it.
Okay, interesting.
Wait, so is this true or is this just a rumor that this happened?
This is unsubstantiated.
Okay.
We don't know the source of this story, the ship or otherwise. Given the fact that the lighthouse's life preserver was lost during the storm, it seems pretty unlikely that any of this is true, because if the water's too choppy for the crew to be rowing, but it makes for a very haunting ghost story. It's like the maritime version of the Phantom Hitchhiker on the road, you know? Okay, so we've talked about all the fringe theories. What really happened that December day? We don't know for sure anyway, but lighthouse historian and researcher Keith McCloskey has put together a rough timeline. And using his understanding of the roles of the keepers, their duties, the severity of the storm, this is what he believes. It all starts actually back in February with a letter that was sent from the NLB secretary, James Murdoch. That letter was sent to Principal Lighthouse Keeper James Ducat, and it says this.
Referring to your letter of 24th February last, reporting the accident to the crane. While under the manipulation of Mr. Marshall, one of your assistants, I am to call your attention prominently to the circular which was issued on 18th February, 1898, of the contents of which both you and Mr. Marshall are aware, and of which I enclosed a copy, holding you responsible for seeing that crane, hoisting gear, etc., are kept in a sound and efficient state and are in every respect reliable.
We all know the tone of this letter, right? This is something that, we've all sent these emails. The subtext is, you fucked up, the crane was damaged, this is your fault, and I'm absolving myself of responsibility. Don't let this shit happen again. That's exactly what this letter was. We don't know exactly what happened during that incident, but it was an accident. We know no one was injured. We also know that a similar event happened at a lighthouse in Skull Skerry, where a sailor delivering supplies actually lost his life when an improperly maintained crane collapsed. The Secretary Murdoch, sent a letter to all of the keepers after the tragedy saying this.
Owing to the recent lamentable accident at Skull Skerry, through the collapse of a crane at the landing place by which one of the seamen of the Pole Star lost his life, principal keepers at all stations are held responsible for seeing that the crane or hoisting gear, if any, and all lifting tackle and fittings are kept in a sound and efficient state and are in every way respectable.
Again, what's Murdoch saying here? Our cranes are expensive. Don't let them get fucked up. He's placing the blame squarely on the shoulders of his subordinates, the principal lighthouse keepers. Now, on Flannan Island, that means that our keepers are on thin ice. The NLB made their cranes a line in the sand, and James Ducat and Thomas Marshall were under the scrutiny after the previous accident of theirs. Which, of course, meant that to them, the safety of that crane was of utmost importance when a nasty storm blew in on the 15th of December, 1900. And to be clear, this is all speculation. We don't really know what happened, but this seems to be the most likely scenario. James Ducat and assistant Thomas Marshall cleaned the lighthouse around 10 a.m. while the occasional keeper, Douglas MacArthur, cleaned up from breakfast, prepared lunch. While cleaning, Ducat and Marshall were watching this storm blow in. They discussed the potential dangers to the crane, which has been the source of this bureaucratic animosity. Marshall knew that they were in jeopardy after the previous accident and was probably unwilling to face another inquest from the board. And, he had had some responsibility for the previous accident. He doesn't want that to blow back on Ducat. Despite the storm, he and Ducat decided they should make sure the crane is protected. After lunch, it became clear that this storm isn't going to abate anytime soon. Ducat and Marshall finished their tea, decided, let's take a trip to the crane to ensure everything is tied down and safe. So they put on their boots, Ducat put on his waterproof coat, Marshall donned his oilskin, much better for the harsh condition. And they went outside. MacArthur still cleaning up after lunch and tea. Fighting through rain, spray of the surf, they found that the crane was already damaged. The railing had been ripped out of the ground, and the life preserver that was supposed to be tied there was missing. Ducat realized a giant wave could have done this. And now they're concerned because they're going to get in trouble for leaving the life preserver and the ropes and all this stuff out in the storm. And Ducat pushed on and thinks if we can maybe find the preserver, if we can get the ropes, if we can do repairs, we might be able to salvage our reputation with the Northern Lighthouse Board. We don't know if they actually spotted the life preserver or the remains of the railing or something, but it's likely that Marshall, feeling the responsibility of these 2 accidents around the crane, volunteered to go down and check the rocks around the sea level and collect whatever debris he could. He would be better equipped for this in his oilskin, so he's the most likely person to do it. Marshall made it to the lower platform of the crane where the railing had been torn apart, and then a gust of wind carried a strong wave across the rocks. Marshall lost his footing and fell into the choppy sea below. Gasping for air, he fought to the surface and cried out for help. Ducat rushed to his aid, but realized with growing dread there was no way he was going to be able to get to Marshall himself. And so he raced back to the lighthouse to get MacArthur. The day cook burst out, didn't even bother to put on his boots or his coat, and together the 2 men ran to save their fellow keeper. Ducat's first instinct was probably to toss a rope to Marshall, but the water was choppy. Marshall was tired from swimming. He probably wouldn't be able to save himself. And so Ducat tied that rope around his waist and decided to swim to his aid, and MacArthur would pull them to safety. And that was when the men turned to see a gigantic wall of water, only a second before it crashed down on their platform 70 feet in the air. In a matter of seconds, they were swept away off the rocks and dragged down into the depths. The rescue was in vain, and all 3 perished in the storm. This theory links all the parts of the story. The damage to the crane, which was a point of contention. Ducat and Marshall's missing outdoor wear, but MacArthur's still in the lighthouse. The missing life preserver, which almost certainly would have saved Marshall's life if it had been there. So what about this massive wave, 70 feet high?
Everything that you said up to the wave point, honestly, like the whole rescue could have gone horribly wrong without the wave.
That's
Like
true.
they could have all died without the wave even coming.
Yeah.
You know,
I 100% agree. I think they are lunatics. I didn't want to interrupt your story, but like they are lunatics for being like, I get that they went to check on the crane to see like what was happening and maybe try to like fix it or secure things or bring things in since they hadn't. But once they got there and they saw the damage already, the fact that like one of them was like, let me go down and see, are you nuts, dude? I feel like they would know better. Like I understand they're trying to like, in this theory, in this likelihood, they're like trying to do their jobs, they're trying to please the boss or whatever, and it is a dangerous job, and I'm sure they know that. But like immediately when he was like, oh, I'm just gonna go down to the sea level and see if I no what like it's already, the waves have already damaged this railing. You think it's good and safe for you to go down there? Like I don't know, I just feel like I believe that they might have done it, but I think it was stupid. Sorry, EJ, go ahead.
No, I think this is a different time, and these are hardened men. I think they value their own lives, but at the same time, I think they value their dignity and their work as just as much. And so I wonder if they're like they're willing to take risks because they're tough men, and they don't see danger the way we see danger sitting here in our comfy chairs. Like
That's
they're
true.
just used to
Or
it.
they just like didn't think of it because they were just like, oh yeah, I'll go down there.
Yeah.
Like,
We all know these kinds of people that are like, yeah, I'm just going to go and crawl into that hole and get it out. It's fine. I'm like, okay, buddy, you go crawl into the snake hole and get the thing you need to get. Like, I don't know.
or it just like doesn't, it's not like you don't know. Obviously, they're perfectly acquainted with like the dangers of lighthouse keeping, but it's like you don't think about it in that sense. Like in their sense, they're like, oh, it's a bad storm. We got to get this stuff fixed up. And like, it's like, you know, they probably, it's not like they didn't know in the back of their heads probably, but it's like you don't even think about it. You're just like, oh, another day at work. Got to go get the thing down at the bottom of the pier, you know?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And don't discount the fact that there had been very harshly written correspondence that said, this crane is your responsibility. If this crane gets damaged, it's on you.
Yeah.
And
You're going to lose your job.
well, I also think we should remember that this was a new pier and crane. The whole thing had only been up like a year or two.
Less.
And they had already lost a crane and had to have it replaced. So I think if we're going to emphasize this pressure about the cranes, it was probably even more so for them because it was a new lighthouse and they had already lost a crane and had to have it be replaced. And that wasn't totally on them because if I'm remembering correctly, they had sort of fucked up and put the crane in the wrong place to begin with.
It was
and
too low. Yeah.
Right. That can't be the right lighthouse keeper's fault, but yeah.
But that doesn't mean that the Northern Lighthouse Board was happy about losing a crane, having it replaced. There had been already an accident with the new crane, and now there was another accident with the new crane. This had been a point of contention. Nobody wants to be the guy who has to report back to the board and be like, hey, so that crane that the brand new crane that you installed, you spent all this money on, you told us not to fuck up. Well, it got fucked up again.
No, totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, back to EJ's original point, I think this all could have gone horribly awry without there even being an enormous wave.
Yeah. But go ahead. I want to hear about the wave, though, because I love this idea, too.
They're called...
Yes. I mean, we all watched The Perfect Storm, so...
They're called rogue waves. Rogue waves are waves that appear at least twice the size of the surrounding waves. And they tend to occur when two waves combine or interfere with each other. What's wild about them is that they are incredibly hard to predict because their creation is a combination of hundreds of factors: weather, temperature, wave patterns, shore geography, water depth, all these things. This theory that a gigantic rogue wave swept the men away is actually backed up by records from another lighthouse. 300 miles away, Eagle Island Lighthouse sits on the coast of County Mayo in Ireland. There's actually two lighthouses, east and west, but they're built on a high point of rock, almost 200 feet above high tide. During an 1861 storm, a rogue wave hit the lighthouse, broke 23 panes of glass, and poured water into the tower. There was so much water in the base of the tower that the door wouldn't open. The door opened inward. They couldn't open the door because of the water pressure. So they had to drill holes through the door to let the water out so they could get in to do repairs.
Wow.
And this lighthouse was 200 feet above sea level plus 87 feet of light of tower.
That's a huge...
300 feet.
That's enormous. I'm looking up rogue waves because I want to terrify myself.
Oh yeah, there's this I don't know if there's multiple beaches in Iceland that have these warnings, but there's a big there are warnings on this one beach. Okay, I'm going to try to say it. Reynisfjara Beach in South Iceland, where I think they have warning signs everywhere for tourists to be careful and to not turn your back on the sea because they will come at you. These waves come out of nowhere and they will pull you and they will kill you. Do not, casually walk around here. Do not turn your back on the sea.
It's like a wild animal.
It's fucking
wear a
crazy.
mask on the back of your head.
Yeah.
Seriously. Oh, man. I mean... This is why I don't go on cruises, but also why, not that cruises they're trying to avoid storms, but this is why. Because the ocean it's intense out there.
It's scary, dude. Yeah.
It's scary. 300-foot wave. That's crazy.
It's ironic that around the time that rogue wave hit Eagle Island, David Stevenson, the iconic lighthouse designer, was attempting to mathematically calculate the height of waves. And his errors, stemming from a failure to incorporate wind speed, would leave his final results far too conservative to be safe for many poor keepers subject to his family's designs. We have more modern reports of rogue waves, too. In 1953, a keeper named Walter Robert Albert was stationed at the Flannan Island lighthouse. He was a sailor in his early life, and he became fascinated with the story of these missing keepers. And so, he's got a lot of time there, and he started taking photos of the waves, often put himself in danger by hanging off the railing at the edge of the cliffs. And after 4 years of study, he concluded that these men had been swept away by one of these waves that he photographed. He talked about how they came out of nowhere. He submitted his theory to the NLB in the 50s. And that was corroborated by another keeper, Jack Ross, who recounted a story where he had been walking around the landing of the Flannan Islands, and a gigantic wave appeared, according to him, out of nowhere. The men grabbed onto whatever railings they could find, and he swore that if he hadn't been near the safety of the landing, he would have been swept out to sea by the wave. Well over 100 feet high. Not during a time where they were getting consistent 100-foot waves. They were getting smaller waves, and all of a sudden there was a 100-foot wave.
Wow. I wonder if Flannan Island is a little bit like that beach in Iceland. Like, just whatever is happening there with, like, what you said, Matt, like all the different factors that go into it, it just makes it more prone to these, like, enormous waves. Not all the time, obviously, but...
Yeah, there's like at least with the Iceland beach, there's like a geologic answer. I think it's because of the way the land drops down dramatically, and so it allows these waves to build up very quickly and dangerously. I think I read about it extensively years ago, and I knew a lot more about it then. But at least in the case of this beach, I think it's much more dependent upon the shelf. I don't know how it is with the Flannan Islands, but at least that's, I think, the case for this.
In the intervening years, the disappearance of these men inspired poets, writers, and storytellers to embellish this tale with details pulled from other sources, like the discovery of the Mary Celeste. Once the iconic poem by Wilfred Gibson was published, the disappearance had become a mystery to be unraveled, one which would stick in the public's consciousness for generations. Despite the tragedy at Flannan Islands, it would take 25 years for wireless telegrams to be installed. The original architect, David Allen Stevenson, had first mentioned the need for wireless communication in 1900, just 9 days, actually, before the keepers disappeared. Although it's still kind of debatable, if they had it, would it have mattered?
No, because if an accident happened because they went to check on the thing, it's not like if the guy's in the water and they're running to save him and then they get swept in too, they're not pausing to wire the land and be like, man overboard.
And even if you were checking in once or twice a day or something like that, by the time they didn't check in, by the time you got somebody mobilized out there, it would have been too late anyway.
It was too late 10 minutes after it happened.
Yeah. Likely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In 1971, the workings of that lighthouse were automated, and a helipad was added to the island. With that modernization, the need for constant keepers was gone. And these days, the light is monitored remotely, and technicians only venture out to the Flannan Islands to perform maintenance and repairs when needed. Still, in 2018, a memorial to the lost keepers was erected on the island. Designed by James Crawford, the memorial is a scale model of the lighthouse, situated on a boulder, with a bronze wave crashing toward the rock. And an accompanying plaque written in Scottish Gaelic says this:
"We are left, while watching for the light, waiting for the shadows of night." Psalm 89:9. You rule the roaring of the sea. When its waves rise, you still them.
Human history is so closely tied to the sea that it is inevitable we would have mythology around it. But even today, with our modern predictive methods, freak events still confound us. In a way, the mysterious disappearances of James Ducat Thomas Marshall and Douglas MacArthur left them with a legacy far greater than their peers. Much like the ghostly Mary Celeste, the Keepers became legends in history, especially Fortean history. The men who tried to control the sea only to find that she was a force too powerful to be contained. They embody their own fears, that even in this world of high-tech meteorology and nautical accomplishments, there are still things we will never fully understand, and mysteries that will forever haunt us. And that's the story of the missing keepers of Flannan Islands.
Very
I
sad.
like that one.
It was good.
Yeah.
Also, for some follow-up research, watch The Lighthouse with Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's
James
the...
Patterson.
Yeah.
James Patterson. No,
Nope.
he's the author. Who the fuck? What the fuck is his name?
Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson. God damn it.
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson is in that?
Oh, he's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, he's so good.
He's one of those people, man. He got his start as a heartthrob, but actually he's a little fucking weirdo. Like, in the best way.
Yeah.
He's a dark soul, I think.
Well, even
He's just great.
what's her name from Twilight?
Kristen
Stewart.
Kristen
Stewart.
Stewart.
Another
Great.
dark
Same.
soul.
She's great. Yeah, she's so awesome.
I love her.
She's really good.
Underwater, right? Was the movie? No.
Yes,
Wrong?
Underwater.
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 Underappreciated fucking
Well,
movie.
yeah, unfortunately, Underwater hit in 2020 and, the theater and all the shit. But Underwater, great horror movie. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Speaking of other movies you could watch, if you are curious about rogue waves, is The Perfect Storm, which is
There you go.
how they died.
Yeah.
I should watch this movie. I don't think I ever saw it, to be honest with you.
really?
I'm
We should
sorry.
watch it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Perfect
Yeah,
Storm?
Yeah. It's a great movie.
I mean, I saw it once, when I saw it in theaters like everyone else when it came out, but it was good.
Just it's another good representation of just how fucking scary the ocean is.
Yes.
We-
extremely good representation of that.
We
That's why I think I
pretend-
never saw it again.
Yeah. We pretend that we have a handle on the ocean. We don't have a handle on the ocean.
No, and I think like I have a very like sweet, like lovely view of the ocean. I have wonderful memories around the ocean, but I don't have the terror I do have respect for the ocean, especially after this episode. But it's like there's a terror to the ocean, and but I think that's part of the wonder. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like I went to Maine a lot as a little kid, and Maine ocean is scary. It's cold. It's rough.
And you have the rocks instead of the beach. Like the Mid-Atlantic,
up
you have all
high
these
enough.
nice sand beaches and stuff. And I feel like that tempers the power of the ocean a little bit.
Yes, it does.
You know, as opposed to I'm out on this rocky outcropping. If you fall in, you're going to get smashed to bits.
I think this might have been just pre-Perfect Storm, but in high school we used to, if you were in AP history, we did this trip to New England to learn about all of the early American history and travel around.
Cool.
And my teacher, it was really fun. But my teacher is from Massachusetts. That's where he's a New Englander. I remember because we would go in like November, so it wasn't nice.
Yeah.
And I remember we were in Rockport, Massachusetts, which I believe is where Perfect Storm, where they were. No, Gloucester. Yes.
Okay.
So we were in Gloucester, Massachusetts. It's right on the North Sea. And he took us out. I remember it wasn't raining, but it was just like a really windy, like cold night. And there's, in the summer, I'm sure it's glorious, but like you're walking along the water and there's sort of this outcropping and there's a statue like looking out to the sea because it's like a fishing town. And he just made us stand out there on this sort of like outcrop balcony kind of thing that they have along the sea. And he's like, there you go. Like that is the North. That is what it is.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, fuck. Like it doesn't look nice. And it wasn't even like that stormy. But I think it left, to the point of this conversation, it left such an impression on me of how powerful and dangerous the sea is. And like, yeah, my experience with it was like the beach in North Carolina, where it's like sometimes if you get it on a calm day, there's like barely swells, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not the ocean.
Yeah.
It is one piece of it, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The sea is a cruel mistress, as Flannan Molly says.
That's right.
Flannan Molly knows what's up.
There you go. That can be our quote to end it on. All right.
There you go.
Well, thank you all so much for listening to this spooky nautical adventure. We will be back next time with something. We're about to jump into a larger series that's going to be a lot of fun, something I've wanted to do for quite a while. So stick around for that. If you are feeling generous, head over to slayingmonsterspodcast.com, click on the support us button at the top of the page, and consider becoming a supporter or dropping us a little bit of change. And that's also where you can find our merch store if you want to wear your support visually. And until next time, everybody be safe out there.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Next time, you stalk through the steamy jungle underbrush along the shore of the most remote lake in the world. A bestial roar freezes you in your tracks as a hulking creature breaks the surface of the water. A prehistoric monster still surviving in this inaccessible swamp.
Thanks for listening to Slaying Monsters, the 40 in History podcast. If you like the podcast, there's a couple ways you can show your support. You can tell your friends, you can leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform, or you can head over to slayingmonsterspodcast.com and click on the Support Us button to leave a donation. For questions, suggestions, and other feedback, reach out to us, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com, and stay up to date by following us on socials at Slaying Monsters Podcast. Your support helps us grow, and we are truly grateful to have our listeners and community.